What if the forest itself became your pantry, and every rustle in the underbrush held a promise of sustenance? Imagine standing at the edge of a river, feeling the cool spray of water as a spear pierces the surface, hearing the faint click of a snare tightening around an unsuspecting rabbit, and tasting the raw, honest flavor of a fish you caught with nothing but a hand-carved tip and a line of bark fiber. That is the challenge I set for myself today, to outthink the wild and harvest protein the way our ancestors did, using only what nature provides and the ingenuity of primitive technology. I'm walking through a dense, moss-laden forest that has seen countless generations of hunters and gatherers, each leaving behind subtle clues of where game travels and where fish gather. The air is thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, and the sound of a distant brook hints at a hidden feeding ground for trout. My plan is simple yet ambitious. First, gather the raw materials needed to fashion tools, then construct 3 different traps designed for small mammals, and finally demonstrate 2 ancient fishing techniques that rely on patience and a deep understanding of animal behavior. By the end of this adventure, you'll walk away with a clear picture of 3 trap designs, 2 fishing methods, and the basic steps to process whatever you catch safely and responsibly. Before we dive into the details, I want to ask you to give this video a quick thumbs up if the idea of surviving off the land resonates with you. It helps the channel keep bringing you these hands-on wilderness experiments, and it tells me that you're as curious about primitive skills as I am. The first step is to become a student of the forest. I move slowly along a narrow trail, eyes scanning the ground for vines thick enough to serve as cordage, saplings that bend without snapping, and smooth stones perfect for shaping a spear point. Look for bark that peels away in long, fibrous strips. Inner bark from certain trees makes a surprisingly strong rope when twisted. I pause at a fallen cedar, its bark still glossy with sap, and carefully peel away a length of bark, rolling it between my fingers to test its tensile strength. Then I spot a young willow branch, flexible yet sturdy, ideal for a fishing pole that will bend under the weight of a struggling fish without breaking. With these raw materials in hand, I sit on a moss-covered rock and begin shaping my tools. Using a stone scraper, I chip away at the tip of the willow branch until it forms a sharp point, testing it against a piece of bark to ensure it can pierce cleanly. I then take a length of bark fiber and, using a simple hand twist technique, braid it into a cord about the thickness of a thumb. This cord will become the lifeline of my snares and the line for my fishing gear. Safety is paramount. I keep a sturdy branch nearby as a makeshift shield and wear thick gloves fashioned from bark to protect my hands from splinters and cuts. While I work, I pause to reflect on the ethical responsibilities that come with taking from the wild. Primitive living isn't an excuse for waste, it's a partnership with the environment. That means respecting seasonal migrations, only harvesting what you need, and always leaving the area as undisturbed as possible. In many places, you'll need a permit to set traps or fish, and it's essential to check local regulations before you begin. The principle of leave no trace guides every action I take, from the way I clear a small area for my tools to how I camouflage my traps without damaging surrounding vegetation. Now that the spear and cord are ready, I give them a quick test. I stand a short distance away and launch the spear at a hollow log, watching it strike with a satisfying thud. Then I pull firmly on the cord, feeling the resistance of the braid as it holds firm under a weighted line. The tools respond exactly as expected, giving me confidence to move forward. At this point, I'd love to hear from you. Which primitive tool are you most excited to try yourself? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's start a conversation about the skills that intrigue you the most. We head now toward a well-oosed game trail, a narrow passage where small mammals like rabbits and squirrels move between cover and feeding spots. Small game is the ideal first step for protein because they're abundant, quick to learn, and provide a manageable amount of meat for a single person. I'll set 3 different traps, each illustrating a unique principle of primitive hunting. The first trap is a classic figureite snare. I locate a low branch that arches naturally over the path, then wrap my cord around it, forming a figureite knot that creates a loop capable of tightening around a passing animal. A simple trigger stick propped against a bent sapling holds the loop open. When a rabbit brushes the trigger, the stick falls and the loop contracts, capturing the animal instantly. Patience is the true bait here. The snare does nothing until the animal's curiosity does the work. Next, I build a deadfall. This trap uses the power of leverage. A heavy rock perched on a makeshift lever arm held in place by a trigger stick and a prop stick. I arrange a small platform of sticks and leaves, set the trigger, and cover the whole assembly with foliage to conceal it. When a squirrel steps onto the platform, the trigger releases, the prop falls away, and the rock crashes down, immobilizing the creature. The physics are simple but effective. The weight of the rock multiplied by the short distance it falls creates enough force to incapacitate even a larger animal. The third design is a pitfall funnel. I dig a shallow V-shaped trench leading to a camouflaged pit about a foot deep, lining the bottom with leaves and soft earth. The funnel guides unsuspecting animals toward the center, where they slip and fall into the pit. I cover the entrance with thin branches and leaf litter, making it almost invisible. Site selection matters. I choose dry soil for easy digging and a spot where animal tracks converge, ensuring the funnel works without excessive effort. With all 3 traps set within a compact area, I step back and let nature take its course. I mark each trap with a discrete stone so I can find them later, then sit quietly on a fallen log listening to the forest's rhythm. The sun moves across the canopy, casting shifting patterns of light and shadow. After a short waiting period, I'll fast forward this segment for you. The traps begin to show results. One of the snares tightens around a rabbit, its ears twitching as it struggles briefly before the loop holds firm. The deadfall springs shut, a squirrel caught under the rock, immobilized but alive. The pitfall funnel catches a small field mouse, its tiny body nestled in the leaf litter at the bottom. I move in slowly, respecting the life I've taken, and begin the process of humane dispatch and careful handling. Now comes the part that many viewers find the most rewarding, processing the catch in the field. I start with the rabbit, laying it on a clean stone surface. I use a sharp stone edge fashioned earlier to make a quick incision along the belly, exposing the internal organs. With a steady hand, I remove the entrails, being mindful to avoid contaminating the meat. I then split the carcass down the spine, separating the hindquarters from the forequarters. The dark, rich meat glistens in the dappled light, a testament to the success of the trap. For the squirrel and mouse, the process is similar but on a smaller scale. I remove the fur using a small, flat stone, then cut open the abdomen to extract the organs. The meat from these tiny creatures is lean and flavorful, perfect for a quick broth or a protein boost in a stew. With the animal protein secured, I turn my attention to the water's edge, where the river bends around a smooth boulder, creating a natural pool where trout often gather. I've already prepared a simple wooden fishing pole, its tip sharpened, and I've attached a length of bark cord ending in a small handled hook made from a bent thistle spine. The first fishing method I'll demonstrate is spear fishing. I wade into the shallow water, feeling the cold rush over my ankles, and locate a school of trout swimming just beneath the surface. I hold the spear steady, aiming for the head, and thrust forward with a swift motion. The spear pierces the water and a trout thrashes, its silver scales flashing before it slides off the tip and tumbles onto the riverbank. The second technique is a primitive fish weir, a low-tech barrier that channels fish into a confined area where they can be easily collected. I gather a series of flat stones and woven branches, arranging them in a V-shaped formation that points downstream, leaving a narrow gap at the point. The current pushes the fish toward the narrow opening where they become trapped against the woven barrier. I then use a small net fashioned from woven bark fibers to scoop the fish out of the water. This method requires patience as the weir must sit for several minutes to allow enough fish to gather, but the payoff is a steady supply of fresh protein without the need for rapid strikes. As the sun begins its slow descent, casting a golden glow over the forest canopy, I sit beside the river to cook my catch. I build a modest fire using dry twigs and larger branches, arranging them in a teepee shape that draws the flames upward quickly. While the fire catches, I wrap the rabbit meat in large leaves, adding a few sprigs of wild herbs I've gathered, sage, rosemary, and a hint of pine needles, then place the bundle directly onto the embers. The scent of roasting meat mingles with the earthy aroma of the forest, creating a simple yet profound feast. The fish still whole I grill over the same fire, turning them carefully to ensure even cooking. The crackling of the fish skin as it crisps is a satisfying sound, and the smell of fresh cooked trout fills the air. I take a moment to reflect on the day's work, feeling a deep connection to the ancestors who survived for millennia using only the resources around them. If this journey into primitive protein procurement sparked something inside you, if you feel a surge of curiosity about mastering these skills, I invite you to subscribe and join me as we explore more ways to live in harmony with the wild. The next chapter will dive deeper into advanced shelter building, fire starting techniques, and how to preserve food for longer stays in the wilderness. Stay tuned, and let's keep pushing the boundaries of what we can achieve with our own hands and the gifts of nature. As the fire crackles and the shadows dance across the riverbank, I pause for a moment to listen to the forest breathing around me. The gentle rush of water, the distant call of a hawk, and the subtle rustle of leaves remind me that I am part of a larger rhythm, one that has sustained humans for countless generations. While the rabbit meat sizzles in its leaf-wrapped bundle, I turn my attention back to the fish that have just been turned over the flames. The skin snaps and curls, releasing a smoky perfume that mingles with the pine-scented air. I slide a simple wooden fork, fashioned earlier from a sturdy branch, under the fish to lift it carefully, allowing the last drops of fat to drip onto the coals, feeding the fire and adding a richer aroma to the whole spread. I take a breath and speak to you, the viewer, because this moment feels like a shared secret between us. Have you ever tasted the pure flavor of a fish cooked exactly the way nature intended, without any seasoning beyond what the forest provides? If you have, let me know in the comments below. If you haven't, tell me what you think the first bite would feel like on your tongue. Your thoughts help shape the next adventure we'll embark on together. With the fish now fully cooked, I set them aside on a flat stone, allowing them to rest while I finish the rabbit. The leafy bundle opens with a soft pop, revealing meat that is pink in the center, steaming and fragrant with wild herbs. I use the same wooden fork to pull the meat apart, watching the juices run clear. The texture is tender, the flavor earthy, a perfect complement to the smoky fish. I take a bite, savoring the combination of protein and the subtle bitterness of pine needles, and I feel a surge of gratitude for the knowledge that allowed me to create this meal from nothing but my hands and the forest's bounty. Now that the immediate hunger is satisfied, I shift my focus to the next phase of primitive food procurement, preservation. In a world where modern refrigeration is unavailable, our ancestors relied on techniques such as drying, smoking, and fermenting to keep their protein sources edible for longer periods. I gather a handful of large, flat stones and arrange them in a shallow depression near the fire, creating a makeshift drying rack. I slice a portion of the rabbit meat thinly, using the stone-sharpened edge of my spear to achieve uniform pieces. The slices are laid out on woven bark mats, each one spaced evenly to allow airflow. I explain that the key to successful air drying is low humidity and steady airflow, both of which the forest provides naturally during the cooler evening hours. While the rabbit strips begin to lose moisture, I turn my attention back to the fish. I decide to try a simple smoking method that requires only the fire's embers and a few fresh spruce branches. I wedge a handful of green spruce tips into the ember bed, then place the whole fish on a bent sapling branch that spans the fire, creating a suspended platform. The smoke curls around the fish, imparting a subtle resinous flavor that is both aromatic and preservative. I describe how the resin in the spruce helps seal the fish's surface, reducing bacterial growth and extending its shelf life. As the smoke thickens, I take a moment to reflect on the deeper significance of these practices. In an age where convenience dominates, returning to these time-tested methods reminds us of the resilience and ingenuity embedded in human culture. It also fosters a respect for the ecosystems that provide us with resources, encouraging sustainable harvests that do not deplete the environment. I ask you, the audience, what sustainable practices you incorporate into your daily life. Share your experiences in the comments, and let's build a community that learns from each other's commitment to the planet. With the rabbit strips now dry to the touch and the fish infused with smoky perfume, I move to the final step of the day's work, storing the preserved food safely. I dig a shallow pit near the base of a sturdy oak, lining it with dry leaves and a layer of pine needles to create a natural barrier against moisture. I then place the dried rabbit strips and smoked fish inside, covering them with more leaves and a final layer of earth. This simple earth burial technique used by countless cultures protects the food from scavengers and keeps it cool through the night. I explain that the key is to choose a spot with good drainage and to avoid areas prone to flooding. Having secured the food for future meals, I let the fire die down, allowing the embers to glow softly as the night deepens. I sit back on a fallen log, feeling the fatigue of the day settle into a comfortable ache. The sky above is a tapestry of stars, each one a silent witness to the countless nights humans have survived beneath them. I reflect on how the skills demonstrated today, identifying materials, crafting tools, constructing traps, catching fish, cooking, and preserving, are all interconnected threads in the larger fabric of self-reliance. I turn to you once more, remembering that the journey we share is as much about personal growth as it is about survival. Have you ever tried building a trap or cooking over an open flame? What was the most rewarding part of your experience? Your stories inspire me to explore new techniques and bring fresh perspectives to the channel. Drop a comment below and let's keep the conversation alive. Before we close, I want to give a quick glimpse of what lies ahead in the upcoming series. Next week, we'll venture into shelter construction, building a lean-to using only natural poles, bark, and vines, while also demonstrating how to waterproof the structure with resintriated leaves. Following that, we'll dive into fire starting without modern tools, experimenting with friction methods like the bow drill and hand drill, and testing different tinder bundles sourced from the forest floor. Finally, we'll explore advanced food preservation, including fermentation of wild berries and making jerky from larger game, all while staying true to low-impact practices. If any of those topics spark curiosity, let me know which one you're most excited about. Your feedback helps shape the direction of future episodes, ensuring we cover the skills that matter most to you. And if you've enjoyed watching the process unfold from the first snap of the snare to the final bite of smoked fish, consider giving this video a like. Likes not only boost the channel's visibility, but also signal to the algorithm that this kind of content resonates with the community, allowing more people to discover the value of primitive living. As the night grows quiet, the fire's last embers glow like tiny suns, and the forest settles into a calm hush. I pack up the remaining tools, ensuring every piece of cordage, every carved spear tip, and every woven net is stored safely for the next adventure. Before I leave the riverbank, I take a final look at the water, watching the moon's reflection ripple gently across its surface. In that moment, I feel a profound connection to the countless ancestors who stood on these same banks, learning to coax life from the land with patience and ingenuity. Thank you for joining me on this day of ancient trapping and fishing. Your presence, even as a viewer, adds to the story we're writing together, one that honors the past while teaching us to thrive in the present. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next chapter. Together, we'll continue to push the boundaries of what we can achieve with our own hands, the gifts of nature, and the shared spirit of curiosity that drives us all. Until the next sunrise, stay curious, stay resilient, and keep listening to what the wild has to teach. What lesson will you take from today's experience? Share it below, and let's keep the dialogue alive as we venture further into the heart of primitive living. The fire's ember glow fades as the night deepens, and the forest around me settles into a rhythm of rustling leaves and distant calls of nocturnal creatures. In these quiet moments, the mind turns inward, replaying each step of the day's work and the lessons that rose from every knot, every splinter, every splash of water. The snare that finally gave way under a rabbit's quick dash taught me that timing is as much a part of the hunt as the trap itself, while the spear that pierced a silver-scaled fish reminded me that patience and precise aim can turn a simple branch into a weapon of sustenance. I find myself thinking about the way early peoples would have watched the same river for generations, learning the habits of the fish, the migrations of the birds, the patterns of the wind that would shift the current just enough to reveal a hidden schooling. Their knowledge was not written on parchment but etched into memory, shared around the fire, refined with each passing season. That is the legacy I am trying to honor, and it is also a reminder that every small success today is a thread in a much larger tapestry that stretches back through time. When the first light of dawn begins to paint the canopy with pale gold, I will return to the traps that have been set, checking each one with a careful hand and a respectful heart. The figureite snare, still intact, holds the promise of another catch if the forest's rhythm continues to favor it. The deadfall, though still dormant, stands as a quiet sentinel, ready to respond to the slightest nudge of a curious creature. The pitfall funnel, concealed beneath a blanket of leaf litter, waits patiently for the inevitable footfall of a wandering animal drawn by the scent of safety. Each of these devices is more than a tool. They are a dialogue between me and the wild, a conversation spoken in tension and release, in the subtle shift of a branch, in the whisper of a breeze. As I walk back toward the riverbank, the water shimmers with the lingering reflections of moonlight, and I pause to consider the next steps. The fish that was speared earlier will be cleaned, its flesh stripped of scales and entrails with the same stone scraper that fashioned the spear tip. I will lay the fillet on a flat stone, seasoning it only with a pinch of wild herbs gathered earlier, and set it near the fire to begin the slow process of cooking. The heat will coax out the flavors, turning raw protein into a nourishing meal that will sustain me through the cold night ahead. While the fire crackles, I will think about the importance of respecting the life taken, honoring the animal's contribution by using every part of its body, from the meat to the bones, which can be ground into a powder for future use, to the sinews that can be fashioned into additional cordage. In this quiet cooking ritual, the forest itself becomes a kitchen. The scent of burning wood mingles with the fresh aroma of river water, and the sound of the fire's pops provides a steady beat that matches the rhythm of my heartbeat. It is a moment of pure connection, where the line between hunter and provider blurs, and the act of preparing food becomes a meditation on survival and gratitude. As the fish cooks, I will take the time to reflect on the knowledge that has been passed down through countless generations, and to consider how each small innovation, a sharper spear tip, a stronger knot, a more concealed trap, has contributed to the human story of thriving in harmony with the land. When the fish is finally turned golden brown, I will sit on a smooth stone, savor each bite, and let the flavors remind me of the day's work. The taste of freshly caught protein, still warm from the fire, carries with it the story of the river, the forest, and the hands that crafted the tools. It is a reminder that food is not just sustenance, it is a narrative, a living record of the relationship between people and the environment. In each bite, there is a lesson about patience, about observation, about the importance of using what nature offers responsibly. As night settles once more, the stars emerge, punctuating the dark sky like distant campfires of ancestors who once roamed these lands. I will lay out a simple sleeping platform of woven branches and bark, ensuring that it is insulated from the damp ground, and I will wrap myself in a blanket fashioned from woven reeds, a product of the same resourcefulness that guided the day's efforts. Before I close my eyes, I will take a moment to look up at the constellations, to feel the cool night air on my skin, and to listen to the forest's nocturnal chorus. In these moments, the lessons of the day settle into memory, ready to be called upon when the next sunrise calls for another round of ingenuity. If you're watching this journey and find yourself wondering how you could apply these techniques in your own backyard, or perhaps in a more distant wilderness, I invite you to share your thoughts below. What part of today's primitive process resonated most with you? Did the figureite snare spark curiosity about knotting, or did the deadfall's physics intrigue you? Maybe you're already experimenting with simple fishing methods and have a story to tell. Your experiences enrich this community, turning a solitary adventure into a shared learning experience, and I look forward to reading every comment. For those who feel a pull toward deeper exploration, consider how you might expand on today's foundation. One path could be to study the seasonal patterns of local wildlife, noting when certain species are most active and adjusting trap placement accordingly. Another avenue is to experiment with different natural materials, for cordage perhaps the inner bark of a different tree species, or fibers harvested from grasses that grow near the riverbank. You might also explore variations on the spear design, such as adding a barbed tip carved from a hardened stone or sharpening the edge with a sand-filled river stone to achieve a finer edge. Each of these small experiments builds upon the core principles we've touched on, and the cumulative knowledge you gain will become a personal toolkit for thriving off the land. As the fire's last embers fade, I'll take a moment to think about the future episodes we'll embark on together. There are many more aspects of primitive living that await discovery: techniques for preserving meat through smoking or drying, methods for creating natural shelters using bark and woven reeds, ways to locate and purify water without modern filters, and even the art of crafting simple clothing from animal hides. Each topic offers a chance to deepen our connection to the environment and to broaden our skill set in ways that honor the ingenuity of our ancestors while adapting to the challenges of today. I'm excited to hear what you'd like to see next. Perhaps you're curious about building a more durable fish weir, or maybe you want to learn how to make a simple bow and arrow from flexible saplings. Maybe the idea of creating a natural fire starter using flint and tinder intrigues you, or you're interested in the process of leaching toxins from certain wild plants to make them safe to eat. Let me know in the comments which skill you'd most like to explore, and together we'll shape the direction of future videos. If this day's adventure sparked a sense of wonder, if the sight of a freshly set snare or a spear slicing through water stirred something inside you, I would be grateful for a simple gesture of support. A quick tap on the like button signals to the platform that this kind of content matters, helping more people discover the value of learning primitive techniques. And if you feel a connection with the ethos of self-reliance and respect for nature, consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you won't miss the next chapter of our journey. Your presence, even as a viewer, becomes part of the story we're writing together, a story that celebrates curiosity, resilience, and the timeless bond between humans and the wild. Before I close this night's entry, I want to leave you with a final thought that has guided many who walk this path. The wild does not demand mastery, but it does ask for attention. When you move through the forest, listen to the subtle cues: the rustle of leaves that hints at hidden movement, the way the water flows around stones, the scent carried on a breeze that signals the presence of game. By attuning your senses, you become a participant rather than an observer, and the world opens up in ways that no map or guidebook can fully capture. Let this mindset carry you forward, whether you are setting a trap in a dense woodland, casting a spear into a quiet stream, or simply sitting by a fire reflecting on the day's work. Thank you for sharing this moment with me, for letting the ancient rhythms of the forest echo in your own thoughts, and for contributing your voice to a community that values learning, respect, and adventure. May the lessons of today linger in your memory, and may you carry them into every future encounter with the wild. Until the next sunrise, stay curious, stay resilient, and keep listening to what the wild has to teach. What lesson will you take from today's experience? Share it below, and let's keep the dialogue alive as we venture further into the heart of primitive living. When the day finally gives way to the cool hush of evening, the forest seems to settle into a quiet that feels almost reverent, as if the trees themselves are listening to the stories we have just woven together. I find myself sitting on a fallen log, the firelight flickering across my face, the scent of pine and damp earth filling the air, and I realize that every knot tied, every branch bent, and every moment of patient waiting has become a thread in a larger tapestry of understanding. It is in these moments, when the crackle of the flames competes with the distant hoot of an owl, that the true purpose of what we have done today comes into focus. The snares we set earlier are more than simple devices. They are echoes of a lineage that stretches back through countless generations, each one learning to read the subtle signs that nature offers. The figureite snare, with its elegant loop of natural cord, reminds us that a well-placed knot can turn a fleeting opportunity into a sustainable source of nourishment. The deadfall, a quiet balance of weight and leverage, teaches us that even the smallest movement can unleash a force capable of providing life-giving protein. And the pitfall funnel, hidden beneath a carpet of leaves, shows us the power of camouflage and the importance of understanding an animal's habitual pathways. When the first rabbit emerged from the snare, its eyes wide with surprise, there was a brief spark of connection, a silent acknowledgement that the forest had trusted me with a gift. I handled the creature with reverence, thanking it for its sacrifice, and then moved swiftly to process the meat using the simple tools we fashioned earlier. The act of cleaning and preparing the catch felt almost ceremonial, a reminder that every step in the chain of survival carries weight and meaning. As the meat sizzled over the fire, the aroma rose and mingled with the cool night air, a tangible proof that the ancient techniques we explored are still viable, still powerful, and still deeply rooted in respect for the living world. Fishing later in the twilight brought its own set of revelations. The spear, sharpened by stone and guided by instinct, cut through the water with a clean, decisive motion. The fish we caught glistened in the firelight, their scales catching the flame like tiny mirrors. Constructing a simple weir from woven branches and stones demonstrated how a modest barrier can redirect the flow of water and guide fish into a waiting trap. Watching the water rush over the woven fence, I felt a profound sense of harmony, as if the river itself were cooperating with our humble attempts to harvest its bounty. The process reminded me that patience, observation, and a willingness to adapt are as essential to fishing as they are to trapping. Beyond the practical skills, today's journey offered a deeper lesson about mindset. The wilderness does not demand that we become masters overnight. It asks that we show up with curiosity, humility, and a willingness to learn from the environment itself. When we pause to listen to the rustle of leaves, we begin to hear the whisper of hidden movement. When we watch the way a stream flows around a stone, we understand the subtle currents that can be harnessed. This attentive presence transforms us from mere observers into participants in a living, breathing ecosystem. I want to hear from you about those moments when you felt that shift, when a simple observation turned into a breakthrough, or when a quiet evening in the woods sparked a new understanding of the natural world. Share your stories in the comments below, and let's build a community where each experience adds a layer to our collective knowledge. If you've ever tried a primitive technique, whether it was crafting a simple spear from a branch or setting a basic snare, tell us how it went. What challenges did you face and what adjustments did you make? Your insights could help someone else refine their approach, and together we can keep the ancient wisdom alive in the modern age. As we look ahead, there are many more paths to explore. I am already planning the next expedition, where we will delve into the art of firemaking using friction methods, testing the ancient bow drill and the hand drill to see which yields a reliable ember under different conditions. We will also investigate the use of natural dyes extracted from bark and berries, learning how our ancestors colored their clothing and tools without synthetic pigments. Each new skill adds another piece to the puzzle of self-reliance, and I am excited to share those discoveries with you as they unfold. If today's video sparked a sense of curiosity, or inspired you to try a technique on your own land, I would be grateful for a simple gesture of support. A quick tap on the like button signals to the platform that this kind of content matters, helping more people discover the value of learning primitive techniques. And if you feel a connection with the ethos of self-reliance and respect for nature, consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you won't miss the next chapter of our journey. Your presence, even as a viewer, becomes part of the story. We're writing together a story that celebrates curiosity, resilience, and the timeless bond between humans and the wild. Remember, the wild does not demand mastery, but it does ask for attention. When you move through the forest, listen to the subtle cues, the rustle of leaves that hints at hidden movement, the way the water flows around stones, the scent carried on a breeze that signals the presence of game. By attuning your senses, you become a participant rather than an observer, and the world opens up in ways that no